down my shoes. Oh, am I getting low? Try to find the seed of dawn, but I can hardly wait that long. No way, no way. Now watch out, if there's no light, how can I get your eye? Silent as a satellite, I've been spending all my time out here. Bus driver, I know you quick tongue kids. Fat lady, are you listening? Ooh, you're all busy making plans, and I'm just getting older, man. Oh yeah, oh
And that was Fat Lady by Sure Sure off their 2018 album with the same name, Sure Sure. Welcome, this is UCLA Radio, and you are tuned into Cold Emails and Hot Coffee today on this beautiful Sunday, January 6th. Thank you for joining. And today we have a special guest, my man Charlie Glick.
Hey,
From Sure Sure, guitarist, vocalist, amazing human being. How are you, Charlie?
I'm good. How are you doing? Is this thing on?
Yeah, it is on.
Cool.
Yeah, it is on.
Hey there.
That's great. Thanks for joining me today, and Happy New
course.
Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for the coffee.
Yeah, of course. It is by courtesy of the UCLA vending machines. French
you.
vanilla.
Thank you, robots.
Getting right into it, traditionally what we're going to do is just give you 3 to 5 minutes, Charlie. Just any brief introductions, who you are, where you're from, how you've met your band, what got you into music, any influences, a day in the life, anything that makes you sad, anything that makes you cry, just your deeper, dark inner secrets. Just let them all out. You got 3
Wow.
to 5 minutes, buddy.
Really? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, hi. I'm Charlie. I grew up in Delaware. I don't know if you've ever met anyone from Delaware. You probably haven't, but I'm from there. It's a great place. I lived there most of my life until I came to California for school, and then I moved to LA and started a band, which is Sure Sure. And I live with those fine boys over in Atwater Village, only a 30-minute drive from here. Have you ever been there, Daniel?
Atwaterville. I actually live in Locker Santa Montrose.
Oh.
So on my way here, I have to drive through that beautiful part of town.
Is that where you were living when I...
No. So I moved right after I graduated high school, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a little background, actually, between me and Charlie. Charlie isn't a true cold email because I did know him beforehand. The way we met was during my college application process.
Yes.
We met at this, what would you call it, like a college prep center?
Yeah,
basically,
college
right?
prep, SAT, tutoring, after school center up in
Santa
up in
Clarita.
Valencia, Santa
Yeah.
Clarita, yeah.
Predominantly Asian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
although that center was more diverse than the one, and I also taught at the Koreatown Center.
Oh yeah.
And that was pretty much purely Korean.
Right.
But up there, it was actually pretty diverse. I had like 2 white kids up there. A couple
That's
Latino
great.
kids. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, so me and Charlie met over there, and he helped me out with my college essays, which is actually really crazy because I don't think I'd be here if we haven't met, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's how we met, and then I gave him an email around in December and asked like, hey, do you want to come down? Oh, by the way, I got into UCLA too, so you want to come down and talk it up a little bit?
And I was like, yeah. And then I came, and now I'm here.
And
but
now we're here.
For all you aspiring musicians out there, you're trying to think of what to do after you graduate so that you can mostly record and write music and still pay rent, is you should work at an after-school tutoring center and help kids with their college essays and their SATs.
That's the move.
It's great.
That is the
pays
move.
well. It's fun. You basically just help. Like I helped Daniel out writing. I think you ended up writing an essay about your mom and the doggy daycare.
Yeah, that was for my Common App, which.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we wrote a lot of stuff about that. But speaking about college, I remember, Charlie, you said that you met one of your bandmates in Stanford because that's where you graduated.
Yes. So I actually met. We're just fixing a microphone here. Oh wow! Thank you, Daniel.
No problem.
Yeah, I met. So the guy who does he does lead vocals on that track, Fat Lady, or he sings. He's the main singer.
Chris, right?
Chris.
Right.
Yeah, he's a genius on the keys. I met him. Yeah, first day of class at Stanford.
Freshman year.
Yeah, freshman year. Started a band. That band was called the Sea People. It was a ridiculous band. Our high point was we won the Battle of the Bands freshman year, and like people were crowd surfing, and we were too drunk to. I can't believe we won because we played last, and like it was like 11:30 p.m. at that point, and we were pretty drunk, and I don't think it sounded good, but it was maybe my most rock and roll moment.
I mean, it was good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So anyway, so I've been playing with that guy for years, and after we graduated Stanford, we moved down here and started a new band with Kevin Farzad and Michael Coleman. Kevin Farzad actually went to UCLA, and he's a fantastic drummer and a pretty hilarious Twitter personality at Kevin Farzad. You should check him out. But yeah, it's been great. I guess this might still be the intro 5-minute thing about me, but yeah, so I've been playing in Sure since then. And we started touring last year, and we released our first album. And I don't tutor or do college essays anymore.
You don't anymore?
I can't keep the jobs because I'm home for a month and then I leave for tour.
Right. That's true.
So goodbye to those jobs, but they were fun while they lasted.
I remember you were telling me about that. Like, I remember specifically, I was asking you about your tour before you went on it, and I asked like, do you think you'll be able to like keep the job? And he's like, I honestly like think that if this takes off, like I don't have to, and like that's been a goal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
So basically, I'm at that point now where I don't need that job, which is great.
Yeah, that must be like really.
It would be
relieving.
a little nice to have. I mean, I'm still not making like a ton of money from music because touring is expensive. But you know, we make a bit of money here and there.
Right.
We're about to leave on another tour. So we did 3 tours last year, and it was pretty hard to keep those jobs. I kind of did a couple like tutoring. Like I helped some kids out with the SATs, but it's just coffee money.
Well, coffee money. But you said 3
green
tours.
Green bean money. I like green beans.
Green bean money. Sponsored by Green Giant. Yeah. I know you went on tour with Hippo.
Yeah.
You said there's 2 other tours.
Yeah. So our first ever tour was with Hippo Campus, so we're just opening for them around the great nation that is the United States, and that was amazing because we got so many fans, and then that allowed us to go on our own tours. So the other 2 tours were our own like headline tours, just national tours
right
around the country, and we're about to go on tour with Young the Giant I'm leaving in like 2 weeks.
So tell me about that. How did you guys get in contact with Young?
Well, they their lead singer went to Stanford, and I think our drummer made the contact or something. He somehow we got our music in their ears because we thought it would be like a great tour to get on,
right.
and earn some new fans, and so they ended up hearing us and they asked us to go on tour with them. So we're like, heck yeah, let's do it. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna record another album in the summer.
Dope.
Yeah.
And I know you. I think it was in November. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you released a new single, "Idiot."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We released "Idiot," and then we're actually about to release another. We're gonna put out an EP this spring, and we're releasing the first single from the EP in 2 weeks, January 17th.
Okay.
That's called "Warm Animal."
Warm Animal.
It's a real groovy track.
Not to be confused with Cold Animal.
Not to be confused with Cold Animal.
So,
no.
as far as recording and the album making process, is that completely within your guys' house at Atwater?
Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. And then Michael is...
Yeah, Mike's our producer and recording engineer. So our control room is in his bedroom, basically. So he has this huge mixing desk with all the gear, all the compressors and the preamps and the computer, of course. And then we record, we have snakes running throughout the house so that we can record downstairs. We have a piano and organ downstairs in the living room. So we have a snake going all the way down there.
Oh, wow.
We record drums in the attic, so we have another snake that goes up to the attic. A snake is basically just, it's 16 mic inputs, and then they run together, and the cables run together in this snake to the control room. And anyway, so, and then we have a third shorter snake if we want to record on the second floor where our bedrooms are. So I like to record guitar out in the hallway because there's a great kind of natural reverb with the stairwell.
And it all ultimately routes back to...
Yeah, it all pipes into Mike's room.
Gotcha.
So that's how we make our music. It's a little different in each house. We used to live in Eagle Rock, which is also literally right next to Atwater, up on a hill. And so we recorded the album there. So now, last summer we moved to Atwater, and we record music there, and I go on walks. I went on a walk today. And it was beautiful. If you haven't gone outside today, get outside. Stop listening to my voice.
It is a very beautiful day outside today.
There's nothing like going on a walk after it rained in LA.
That's true. There's a name for that, that smell.
Yeah, petrichor.
Yeah.
But petrichor is specifically the smell after the first rain, after a long period, after the summer, dry season. I think it's that specific. So technically, this isn't petrichor, guys. This is... We gotta wait till next fall for another petrichor.
Someone had to make that word and specifically jotted down the criteria of what petrichor had to be.
Yeah, I wonder what the etymology of that word is. Petrichor. I mean, what it means dead, petrified.
I guess.
Dry.
Dried, yeah.
Well, I don't know if it means dry. It might just mean dead or frozen or something. Petrified, petrichor. And then isn't it CHOR?
Yeah.
CH, what's that? Core, petrichor. You ever take Latin?
No.
I took Latin for 7 years.
Weird flex, but okay.
I don't know what I think it's CHOR. I don't know what that comes from. If anybody knows, please send me an email. Glick247@gmail.com. Thank you.
Let me talk to you, because you were just saying that you live with your bandmates, correct?
Yes.
How is that?
It's great. So I don't live with all of them. Chris, the keys man, he moved in with his girlfriend last summer when we moved out of the old house.
Okay.
So now I live with Mike and Kevin, the drummer, and then we live with a fourth guy, Steve, who's Mike's cousin. He's gone on tour with us. He sold merch last spring, and then he's a sound engineer, so he did sound on the last tour. Sorry, I have to burp. I hope that got on air. Yeah, it's great. I like living with my buds.
With your bros.
Yeah, with my best friends. Kevin's a great chef.
Really?
Yeah, he's really good in the kitchen. I aspire to be as good as he is. I don't know. It's fun. I don't know if I would like. I guess I would do well living alone, but it's nice to be around the bandmates because like even last week, like just at any time of day, like 10 p.m. at night, we could come up with. Like Kevin just came up with his new beat last Thursday night, and then it turned into a whole song the next day. And yeah, it's kind of great for the creative process in a way, as long as you don't hate each other, which we don't.
Right.
We're all kind of best friends.
So the process just kind of naturally flows when you guys are just kind of cohabitating. In the
yeah, I mean, we need space from each other, but we each have our own lives separate from the band.
Right.
So it hasn't really been a problem. We talk. We anytime there is a problem, we talk it out, which you have to do in any human relationship. Don't harbor any resentment, guys. It's bad for your long-term health and your short-term relationships.
Relationship advice, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just how that's important for a friend or like a significant other. It's also very important for a band. Because I feel like a lot of times a band doesn't work out because people just end up hating each other because they don't know how to talk to each other, maybe.
Right.
So yeah, we're working on that. Sometimes it's hard to tell your bandmate that you wish they had cleaned their plate or something. But I guess the issues get more serious than dishes.
Right.
Usually I just clean the dish. I shouldn't get angry about a dish.
Speaking about advice, there is a number on your Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember in the past, I think you and your band kind of explained like it routes to a phone that's in your house.
Yeah.
And then you had it set up so that when you're on tour, the landline actually forwards the call to our cell phones.
Yeah.
So can you give me a little information on how that came about?
It came about because we were paying for this landline telephone in our cable and internet package, and at our old house, and we didn't really realize it. And then one day we were like, "Oh yeah, we paid $10 a month for a landline. Like, let's just go to Staples and get a phone." And so we did that. Me and Mike did that like a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago now. And yeah, we set up the landline and set up a little answering machine and posted the number, and now people call us a few times a day.
A few times a day?
Yeah.
Do you guys answer?
If we're around.
Gotcha.
We miss a lot of calls because maybe we're not at the house, or if we're recording, like we don't keep it upstairs. So
right.
We might not hear it.
But
I just answered the phone the other day, and it was this woman who, unfortunately, we had screwed up her online order. She ordered a poster and a T-shirt. Oh, no, a vinyl and a T-shirt, but I guess we forgot to package the T-shirt, so she was like, "Could you send me the T-shirt? I only got the vinyl." And I was like, "Yeah, sorry, Gina." Her name is Gina. And she was like, "Thanks." And so I packaged up her T-shirt, and I have to send it tomorrow morning.
That's crazy, though. Wait, so predominantly for the people who do call in, what's it usually like?
Sometimes it totally depends. A lot of them are like people who don't believe it's real, and then I pick up, or like someone picks up, and I'm like, "Hey, like, this is Charlie from Sure," and then they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't think this was real." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm eating my toast right now. What's up?" And they're like, "Nothing. I'm like just like sitting in my bed in Kansas, don't want to go to class." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'm like, "What are you studying?" And then they're like, I don't know, art history. And so we talk about that. Or sometimes they will ask for relationship advice, which is always fun. Or one time we got invited to a party in Eagle Rock when we were living in Eagle Rock.
Oh, wow.
This guy called and was like, "Hey, I'm at this party. I'm playing your song, The Caller. And I just wanted to see if you guys wanted to come to this party. It's my friend's birthday." And so I was like, it was like 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was sitting at home with a friend who was over and just having a beer. And so me and my friend, who's not in the band, and then most of the band, we all drove 5 minutes to this guy's birthday party. And it turned out to be the birthday party for the prop master for Nathan For You. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was great.
That's crazy.
It was a cool party. Played beer pong.
Oh, wow.
That guy told us some funny stories about the show. how he had to make like a chili dog suit for
Yeah,
Nathan that dispenses hot chili out of like the crotch or something. Like he had to make that.
He's the guy
like
who
he's the
made
guy who
that
makes
thing.
that stuff. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it was cool. So
Oh,
honestly, like all kinds of stuff happens.
Wow.
It's just we're not always there to pick it up.
So speaking about more for your Spotify, because I remember the first time I ever listened to your stuff, it was before the tour, and then after the tour, now you guys are almost at like 1 million streams for a lot of your songs. So how do you think that growth within just like 1 year, how do you think it grew so fast or like facilitated?
I think a big part of it was starting to tour. And a big part of it was doing that tour with Hippocampus, because they were basically, that whole tour was sold out, like 1,000 cap rooms. So we were playing to a lot of people every night, and a lot of people who hadn't heard us.
Right.
And also it was the timing of that tour, and then also we dropped our first album like right before it. So it was just like a perfect storm of actually being in front of people, new people, and then the kind of natural like algorithms on Spotify that sort of push your music to new, like Discover Weekly and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I think it was just because before that point we'd been basically only like an internet band. Like
right.
we would just play in LA, like at the Satellite, and you know we had pretty good streaming, but we were basically just, that was it. Like
right.
we weren't like a real band yet to most people. We'd only played in LA, so going on, it was really, I think going on that tour, starting to go around the country as a traveling circus, or sometimes we feel like pirates. Sometimes you're carrying, when you're on tour, like sometimes you're carrying so much cash from, usually it's from merch, like
merch sales.
At one point on like our spring tour, we had like $15,000 in cash. Like,
oh my, just like,
because we have this like, we're a member of a bank that's not, it's only in like New York, LA, San Francisco, Boston, and Chicago, I think, maybe Seattle.
So you have no
Portland.
place to deposit.
So when we're in the middle of the country, which is like half the tour, we're just like carrying around a ton of cash. So we're kind of like traveling pirates, and we like hop out of our car, with
just
our
plundering,
bulging. Yeah. T-shirt salesman, you could call us.
T-shirt salesman. Yeah.
Traveling T-shirt salesman is really what a band is at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but your original question was about streaming. Yeah, I think it was, I don't know. It depends. It can happen in so many different ways now. You don't even have to tour to like have 20 million streams. Yeah.
So before the tour, and when you said you had like regularly consistent streams, like they were okay, how did you get from that jump from literally nobody knowing who you are to like, was it more of like a slow growth over time, or how did you market? How did you get your like the Sure brand? Like,
you mean like in the very beginning, before the tour?
Yeah, like very beginning.
Honestly, like we released our first music not even on Spotify. It was like early days of Spotify. We were like, we were like anti-machine. I don't know. We're anti-system. Really, we're not like that. We're not too anti-establishment, but we just didn't really think of it, and then we just released them on SoundCloud. Honestly, the thing that helped a lot in the beginning was I was saying earlier how our drummer Kevin he's like a Twitter personality too. Like he writes jokes on Twitter at Kevin Farzad. I'm gonna keep plugging him. But so he had an audience already, so that helped in the very beginning with just getting people to hear our music. And then randomly, like a blog, I don't know, like DIY in England picked it up, and with the early music like Okinawa and like our first EP, but then I don't know, we just kept playing it. Like it took a while. It took a couple years. Our drummer Kevin got sick for like 6 months, and we had to kind of go on hiatus for a while, and it was kind of gnarly. We almost thought about like changing, and just like me and Chris were talking about going back to school, and
oh wow,
we thought like maybe like Kevin, like we weren't sure when Kevin was gonna get better, and so that was kind of a dark time. But then when he got better, that's when we released New Biome. And that got there. So Spotify might still do, I don't know if they still do Fresh Finds, but Fresh Finds,
I believe, yeah.
It's like this Wednesday playlist, and New Biome got, like the algorithm picked it up, and it was like the third song on the playlist, and it like blew up and went viral. that was huge for us, and that really started getting us on the radar on Spotify, because that was like the first thing we released on Spotify.
Right.
And then that's how Hippocampus heard us. Was Nathan, their guitarist, like heard our song Caveman on like his Discover Weekly, and then was like, holy cow, like what is this band? And then he could turn the rest of the band on to us, and then their manager hit us up and was like, yo, come on tour. And we're like, yo, okay. That would be awesome.
That's crazy.
So
it was,
yeah, it's just,
have you figured out the algorithm? Like, or do you think it was just like
So I think the way it worked back then, I don't know how it works now, but the way it worked back then is like they monitor an array of basically signals, if you will, like tastemaker quote unquote tastemaker listeners on Spotify and what they're listening to. It also monitors blog activity on the internet, I think, and then it just this algorithm selects, I think, 100 or 200 songs that are candidates, and then I think there's like a team of people who then, at least at that time, who then chooses like the 50 or 25 or maybe it's 30. I think it's 30 songs.
Gotcha.
That get put on Fresh Finds.
So it's like a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how it works. But yeah, the algorithms now I think take into account a lot of. It's not all algorithm still. But I could be wrong. I'm sure there's listeners who know more about how Spotify works than me. But yeah, it still takes into account like who's listening and like how many people are saving the song and like et cetera, what blogs are writing about it.
Gotcha.
Although blogs honestly don't matter anymore. Like, who cares?
Right.
Except for some reason they still, I don't know, really want to get into music business stuff. But like people are like, you still need to pay for PR. That's how bands get on blogs, is they pay a publicist a lot of money, and
you guys have just done it like all organic.
No, I mean we've worked with publicists before. It's kind of just like standard, especially since we started working with our manager. It's like he's convinced us that it's like an important angle, and I agree. I think it is great if you get on like NPR, like Pitchfork.
Yeah.
I mean, although Pitchfork is kind of BS at this point. I mean, it's all BS. I don't read the blogs, but I think some people still do.
Right. I guess.
I don't know.
I guess it's just like now just there's a lot of attention that's being placed in very different places.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure like 1 out of every 50 people do check the blog, but most people are, on Spotify playlists or finding their music in other ways.
Totally.
But yeah,
it's mostly just. Yeah, I know artists who have like no blog, like or barely any blog like coverage, and they're huge on Spotify. So it doesn't really matter.
Gotcha. Welcome back, everyone. If you are just tuning in, this is UCLA Radio's Cold Emails and Hot Coffee, and I'm here with the Charlie Glick. We just played for you Codex by Radiohead, as well as a little bit of Nick Drake, and Charlie wanted to say something about Radiohead real quick.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to talk about that song Codex is off of their album King of Limbs, which I was still in college. I think I was like a junior or senior when they released that. And at Stanford, they still have this room called the Listening Room in their music technology building. And it was the most amazing album listening experience I'd ever had. Because I mean, I'm still a huge Radiohead fan, but like me and Chris, who I play with, and a lot of my really good friends were just obsessed with Radiohead. And we planned to go to the listening room. It came out like, I don't know if it was what day of the week it was, but we went on a weekend and there was like 30 of us. And it ended up being this like party in the listening room. Like people were smoking weed. We brought in a 30 rack of beer, but we were all like, we were hanging before we actually listened. And then once we put it on, like everybody, like nobody said a word, and we listened to that. It's a short album. It's like maybe 30 minutes, maybe a little more. But the first 5 songs on that record are they're very frantic, very groove oriented, very repetitive songs. But then once you get to Codex, it's like, it just felt like this journey through like the underworld, and then suddenly you hit Codex and it's like you step into heaven. And it was like the craziest, like one of the craziest music experiences I had, or not crazy is a terrible, imprecise word. I think one of the more, I don't know, I can't even find a word for it. It just felt like utter serenity after a really hectic like journey.
It's like bliss.
Yeah. So I've always loved that song since then. I really like that album. Not my favorite Radiohead album, but also I don't really rank albums.
That's true.
But I just love that song. I put it on pretty often.
As far as for Radiohead and Nick Drake, and I remember you were saying when you met Chris, you found like very similar music tastes between you and him.
Yeah.
How has, these people who you've listened to and gotten like kind of more or less like inspiration from kind of tie into your own like creative process?
That's a good question. I think, they're very different artists, Nick Drake and Radiohead. I mean, with Nick Drake, that's like that album Pink Moon. That's probably my favorite album of all time. It's just him and a guitar, except on the title track Pink Moon. There's a piano for like 20 seconds of the song, not even. And then the rest of the album is just his voice and the guitar. But that album has always showed me like how you can get away with very little in a song, and you can move mountains with basically nothing but a pure soul in the song, which I think that album especially has. I mean, you listen to Nick Drake has there are 3 studio albums before he died, and then I think there's a couple posthumous releases. But I read a little bit about it, and his first 2 albums were very I don't think they were what he ever wanted. I think there was a producer and the label, and they were
kind of guiding the direction.
You gotta have an orchestra, and you gotta have this jazzy piano player ripping solos all over the song, and et cetera, et cetera. You gotta have drums, and he got really depressed because the albums didn't land. Nobody, and his career didn't really take off, and then he got super depressed, and then he wanted to. He went in to record his 3rd album, and I guess maybe he wasn't on the label anymore, or at least he convinced them to let him just do it guitar and vocal. And it's the most beautiful album ever, and you can tell it's it's just how he was meant to be. Really captures something special. And yeah, he committed suicide shortly after that album was released, I think. But man, I love that album. So anyway, and then Radiohead, they're just so creative. I think one of the most important things for us when we're recording is we don't really set out to make a certain kind of song or a certain kind of music. It really, all we want is to be surprised by ourselves. And I think with every song, we want to make something we've never made before that sounds like something we wouldn't expect ourselves to make. And I don't know if Radiohead has ever talked about that in their process. I know some other artists who talk about that, but I definitely think that's part of their approach, especially once you get into OK Computer and then Kid A. I always remember reading about how Ed O'Brien wanted to make another album after OK Computer. He wanted to go back and make an album of 3-minute guitar pop music. And then Tom York was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then and then they came up with Kid A, which is the most crazy computer music / rock and roll album in the world. I can't believe they came up with that. And then everything since then. Even with OK Computer, it's just very surprising music. Sonically, and the songwriting's always been great. If the lyrics, maybe the lyrics are kind of a bit vague at times, but he always brings it home with like a pretty simple, like emotional punch. Yeah. I don't know. Creep is still the best song. I don't know about that, but I did belt it last night at karaoke.
As far as for writing in your band, who is predominantly your writer?
Chris and I are the songwriters. I mean, we all have a hand. Kevin and Mike have a hand in lyrics. But in turn, well, me and Chris, we play the harmonic instruments, and so we usually come up with the chords and melodies and lyrics, oftentimes together, but it depends. Sometimes I'll write like a whole song and just bring it to the band, and then we flesh it out, or Chris will do that. Or other times, like Kevin will make a beat in the computer, and then that inspires like an entire song. Like our song "Hands Up, Head Down" started that way. It was just like a little beat that Kevin made on his laptop, and then me and Chris sat down. Chris was on his synth, and I had the electric bass, and we plugged in the computer, and I just started playing that bass line, and Chris started playing this really weird, like almost like out of key piano line or synth line, and yeah, it can just spark from anywhere. So it's really collaborative.
Right.
Yeah. Chris is like he's got a great ear for melody, so he's very he kind of often has like final word on the melodies. And I was an English major, so I'm pretty intense about lyrics. So I'm kind of like the lyrics. I have the final word on lyrics, but not. That's kind of extreme. Like it's not always that way.
Right.
But
So like
I definitely think a lot about lyrics. I think more than anyone else. So, and Chris thinks more about melody than I do. I usually just I like going with the first thing I sing, and I'm like, oh, that's the best thing, and then I want to move on and get the lyrics done.
Yeah.
But then Chris is like he's way more meticulous with melodies, and he likes improving them and like shaving them down to their best possible form.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think we would come up. If I was just writing the melodies, they would not be that good. I mean,
what do you think is one of the biggest, let's say, like key or like the tip to like your writing?
The biggest thing, I mean, it's different with every artist, I think, but for us and for me and Chris specifically, we've found that we can't ever force ourselves to write a song. Like you can't like sit down and be like, okay, we're going to come up with a song. That almost never works. In fact, we toured a lot last year, and we didn't have that much time to be in the studio, which is a big change for us because we spent the first 3 years of our like formation as Sure just in the studio, like writing music. So last year was the first year we didn't have as much time, and so we got back from our last tour in the fall, and we had this like really strong urge to like go go on a retreat and like write music. And so we went to my buddy's place in Santa Cruz, up in the hills there, and beautiful place, and like honestly, like it's like the ideal place to chill and write music. But we came up with like absolutely nothing. Like we played like all day, and we just didn't come up with a song. And then we decided to leave early because it wasn't very productive. And Chris's parents live up, they're like researchers at Stanford, so we went to their place, and they have a great piano there, and it's like they're like the best hosts ever. I love going to their house. And so we just went there to chill for the rest of the weekend. No intentions at all. And then suddenly Chris came up with this amazing piano. This great chord progression. It's kind of like Benny and the Jets. And then we got home and like made it, and then we made the song, and now it's like going to be probably our next single after the next song we release. So anyway, the lesson is you can't ever like force songwriting. I think it's really important to practice as much as you can, like practice your instrument and write as much as possible, because that's the only way to get better. But the best songs are always going to surprise you, and they come out of nowhere, like in the margins of the day. So you just have to be available for that. Like, don't make yourself too busy. make sure you have like downtime in your life, because in my experience, like that's when the best songs happen. You just have to have space for them, and then they come to you. You can't find them. Yeah.
As far as let's take a step away from kind of like the music part, but is there anything like not band related, not music related, not guitar related, not writing related that you do, a routine maybe, a hobby or something that has really affected like your artistry?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I like to do outside of music. I read a lot. That's always been a big influence. I read a lot of fiction. So yeah, stories are always like something I'm interested in. And then also I've lately been into Eastern religion and reading a lot about Buddhism, and that's been a huge part of my life this past year. And yeah, trying to start meditating, and I like meditate when I like to go on walking meditations. I'm not very good yet at like doing sitting meditation, but on a day like today, I like to go outside and I say a little poem to myself in my head and look around me and think about a lot of different things. But lately I've been thinking about death and life and what that actually means. And
it's like a normal Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
And like how maybe life and death is just stories that, we tell ourselves, when really we're just like this manifestation of the universe that's neither alive nor dead. It's just like you don't really ever die, and you were never really alive in the first place. Like maybe you'll learn about this, and you're studying cognitive science.
Yeah.
So there's this part in your brain, I forget what it is. Some listeners might know this, but there is a section of your brain that's responsible for, it's like the self center, and it is the thing that tells you stories about yourself, and like it uses your memory and to like construct a narrative. And that's where at least scientists think this is where like much of our idea of self comes from. And there's ways to like quiet that down. And in Western society, maybe the way that society works, it really kind of amplifies the self center. And then there's other cultures that don't have, like, if you went back to like hunter-gathering times, there was not that much emphasis on the self. It was about like the tribe,
the group.
And it was about nature and like being connected and like knowing how to find food. So you had to be very connected with everything around you in order to successfully survive. Right. Whereas today you don't really need to. And this goes really, really deep. But yeah, there's a lot of like, some people think this is why like in the U.S. and other Western civilizations there's a lot of depression and anxiety, is because we have so much emphasis on the self. Ourselves. And like that part of our brain is like so active, whereas in some like cultures it's not active. In Tibetan culture, for example, there's very low rates of depression and anxiety. Right. It's because they're practicing Buddhists are like, it's all about like dissolving the self. And that's kind of true for a lot of different religions. But anyway, so I'm pretty into that kind of stuff lately, and that definitely inspires creativity in me. And I'm just trying to break down the walls between myself and the world around me, because I know on some level there aren't really any walls. Right. And it's just this part of my brain that's telling me that I'm separate from you and like the studio that I'm in, even though like
we are all one.
I'm not really that separate in some ways. So I don't know. There's a lot to unpack in there. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that on my walks and looking at dogs and the sun coming through the cloud. Great clouds today.
Very beautiful clouds.
Yes. But yeah, so reading and being with people and eating are really important for me.
And they're very important
for lots of people.
For lots of people too, yeah.
I'm just a regular guy.
Well, with that, thank you, Charlie, for stopping on in. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel,
Yeah.
for having me.
Yeah, and Happy
fun.
New Year's. I hope
Yeah.
you're the best for 2019 for you and the band.
Thanks. Yeah, have a great rest of your freshman year.
Oh, we'll see about that. That was, you're going to leave you off today from Cold Emails and Hot Coffee. Up next is Nice Girls, Nice Books, and Nice Big Thoughts. Stay tuned. This has been UCLA Radio, and have a great day.
See ya.